and maybe serve your customers better. That was the problem set in front of us. But we said, what if we think about the problem differently? What if we think about the genesis of the supply chain, where the dirt, where people who work with the dirt and then harvest wood or fish from the sea, looking at the world through their mind, their eyes, can we do it better? Can we apply that same level of intellectual power and technology, solving for the big guys like Google and Amazon, and then apply it for a different community? Would we come up with a different result? And if we think about it, there's 500 million farmers in developing countries, and they're currently paying anywhere from 18 to 38% interest to borrow a loan. North America, European farmers are paying around 6 to 8%. What if we just equalize that globally? Would that have an impact on world GDP? We think so. What I also like to think about is it's not about blockchain and all the technologies that give us a new arsenal to be able to deploy differently with a different perspective, but I think the mentality of the world is changing. And there are enough activists out there, even in the staunch corporate 500, that if you give them the ability to execute a better strategy, they will take it. If you talk to Nike or Whole Foods or a number of different actors and you said, hey, look, we want you to take corporate social responsibility seriously. We want you to remove slaves from any production process. We want you to take out conflict minerals. They typically say, I would do it even at cost, even at risk, if I thought it would work. So if you give me the tools, I'm willing to go there. So part of this isn't a lack of willingness. Sometimes it's a lack of enabling technology, processes, and of course, operational support and compliance in the field, which of course is always the hard part. When you look down and you ask our team, okay, what do we care about? What's defining our mission? What's our big, hairy, audacious goal? You go through this exercise, we've kind of eliminated many of these as short-term goals, and we've kind of nominated 4. As Scott said, rice feeds the world. Can we take cost out of that structure and make it more fair for the farmer? That would be awesome. That's a good one. What about creating a decent work, economic growth? What about innovation? What about infrastructure to support a better distribution of liquidity? We think of liquidity, having that metaphor with water. What if liquidity went to the people who need it the most? Sometimes they're the people, as Scott said, who have the most difficulty achieving liquidity. And then, of course, responsible consumption and production. So this is kind of our playing field right now. And we're young, and I'm thankful to be here. And our goals for this presentation is to begin a dialogue with like-minded people who know something different and better than we know. I'm kind of a neophyte to social impact. I've had opportunities to work with supply chains like Nike and Levi's that have done some good work in sustainability, and we're proud of it. But nowhere near the scale we can do going forward. And what we like about this organization and this forum is that yesterday we met 7 people with really good ideas I didn't even know about, and hopefully today more will happen like that. So, in one slide, summarize what do we care about and what are we working on. And I know this is a lot, so consider this a long list. And as you can tell from Scott, we're not short of ambition or vision. But if we just take it from the top, economic protocols to incent good behaviors. We think blockchain is an opportunity to create a non-sovereign currency that if you apply it correctly with token economics, we can impact the right behaviors. We love Bitcoin as a case study in giving trust to math and a system that's not governed by anybody, but that's just a proof of concept to what can really happen with smart money. We want to be able to enable fair trade. We want to be able to have financial inclusion. Of course, ethical sourcing fits into this. The elimination of slavery and fraud and counterfeit. We are privileged in that we live in the United States and maybe Europe, but if you just step outside into other parts of the world, there are millions of people who die from counterfeit drugs and poison. The problem on food tracking is not so severe here. It's very severe in other places, and blockchain offers us the opportunity to lower the cost of adoption and improve its effectiveness. This can be a big global impact. We are a nonprofit foundation. We're an open source protocol, and 10% of revenue, not 10% of profits, which can be manipulated by the actors who report their profit. 10% of revenues goes towards charitable acts in fulfillment of this mission. So we are also a funding source for people with very good ideas, the ability to implicate change. And our money is really focused on technology and compliance of these missions, not so much for people to broadcast how horrible it is. We really want to marry the identification of problem with the resolution, and we want to fund the remedy. So it's a little bit different than just broadcasting the message. And there are people in this room, Derek and others, who are saying, let's rethink ownership, and that resonates with us. Because if you really think about crowd sales and token economics, it's about not just giving control to a few very powerful, usually men, usually in Silicon Valley, to fund these companies like Amazon to benefit from that. We're thinking about more of a parity ownership, and we think crowd sales and token economics has an impact on that. Of course, it's a sharing and gig economy. A year ago, we were really spending a lot of time thinking about talent liquidity and a logical extension of supply chain, going from vertical integration to outsourcing, going down to the outsource to the individual. The individual can actually be an agent to themselves, find them their place in the marketplace, and be fairly compensated based on outcome. Maybe that's a mouthful, but the point is it all fits into our master plan. And then, of course, crowd sales for social impact. So when we think about capital and money, as Scott has outlined, is it fair? Could it be more efficient? Could it be more widely distributed? And we've identified ideas we think that will impact all of these areas. And it's ultimately financial inclusion at the genesis of the supply chain, or a middle-class out-of-work person in Ohio, or a rice farmer in Thailand. One concept I like, and we're still working on what this means and can we help support it, is the triple bottom line. Have many people heard of that? Maybe everybody in this group has? Well, I didn't think about it a year ago. It wasn't part of my corporate social responsibility. It was really around compliance and sustainability and green and carbon footprint. But those of us perhaps are idealists, but we think this can manifest itself in new and different ways. And companies will, over time, ultimately get to a place where it's not just about profits and cash flow and who owns what assets. What if it also had a social accounting in a new and different way? Worthy of exploration. So I'm responsible for manifesting the vision. And part of that is to create an ecosystem of people who support each other in pursuit of common goals. So we have an alliance organization, and 9 months later we have 30 companies, big and small, who are committed to the same goals. And we hope to make this 100, perhaps 200, and we're now ramping up as we get more mature in size. But a great number of companies, and some of these aren't necessarily obvious. Like Decentral is an IoT security company. We would argue that that's relevant to our charter. What you may not know with solar panels and wind machines, that you've now introduced more complexity into the networks that power our countries, and it's open to bad actors to be hacked. But what we've discovered is that same technology that would protect IoT devices can now protect the blockchain sensory devices. And if you're talking about putting in compliance in the workforce, if you can hack it and you don't trust the data, even if it's in an immutable ledger, you haven't solved the problem. So something like security at the edge does make an impact, and that's a project we're proud of. We've engaged in some supply chain projects. Scott and our team, we've had the advantage to work for some very large channel masters, companies like Cisco or Caterpillar. And these companies own the customer relationship, they own the margin, they're the big giant, they have low cost of capital, and they're the ones who dictate the rules. And in any of these entities that are our subject, they spend about $20 billion a year in their supply community. And so from one perspective, my perspective in starting companies is if you can solve the problem, the very big, complicated problems first, you can dumb it down later. And if you can get one of the tigers of industry to adopt your protocols or your strategy, that'll roll through. So that's a quick acceleration. As hard as it is, if you jump over that hurdle, good things happen. So we're now engaged with meaningful pilots with high-tech companies, pharma companies, and this is an area that I haven't been asked until recent years to think about the farm community and agriculture. Typically, I've been thinking about high-tech and pharma, heavy discrete manufacturing, and it's opening our eyes to how much opportunity there is in the agricultural business. One of our projects, which we're very proud of, is Big Combi. And this is a family or a couple of people who have been engaged in trade, for example, between Vietnam and Nigeria in the trade of rice to feed one country and nuts or palm oil as exports for another country. And when we get down into the details, we find out people are paying 8 to 12% foreign currency exchange fees just to be able to have these developing nations move their trade into dollars and then move it back to local currency. What if we had a blockchain-inspired platform that allowed you to barter or use Bridgecoin as the medium of exchange, and there were no exchange fees? If a bag of rice is 50 cents to the farmer in Vietnam, $4.50 to the importer in Nigeria, and 85 cents is financing charges, what happens if we eliminate 85 cents of those charges and redistribute it to the people who matter, the consumer and the farmer? Big things would happen. This is one part of our strategy to achieve that goal. Another one of my